Alright, sorry I jumped around on you again. Took the center cap out, and I used a screwdriver and a hammer. You can do that with minimal damage if you don't get carried away. The new one usually does not come with this, so when you take it off, I worked it out really slow, spun it around, and worked it out. I did end up having to get my torch set out to heat these bolts up. You got to be careful doing that also, because here's what ended up happening. Your bracket sits here. Of course, your rotor will still be on at the time, and the bracket sits there. The bolt, of course, goes through this and into this bracket. Well, by heating this up, unfortunately, in this hole is where that slide goes through, and they got those little rubber deals, and I caught that one on fire. So I beat them both out. I'm going to see if I can go get a couple of them to replace that. But I'm not saying you have to have a torch set to do this, but I did put my breakover bar on it. And although I didn't get super abusive and stick a bar on the breaker bar, I got on it pretty good, and I couldn't get it to come loose. I wished I had better news, but I had the same problem, like I said, with the back axle when I replaced. I had to replace the seal. When I first bought this, the seal was leaking on the passenger side in the back, and I pulled that off, and I ended up having to heat this one up because, like I said, the leaf spring, just like you saw on that brake deal, the leaf spring's in the way. There's no way to get an impact on it anyway. You have to use some type of a breakover bar, and I tried using a 3/8 ratchet, which of course was stupid, along with a pipe on it. I ended up breaking the ratchet, so I ended up going to get a breaker bar, and it still fought me. And because I did not heat it up, and it fought the entire way out. And so yeah, I don't know if one of those small, like little propane, or MAP gas torches would get it hot enough to do, but it'd be better than nothing to try to heat that up. And again, I'm not saying you have to do this, but there's a reason that people take these to garages to have them done, because not everybody has a torch set. Not everybody has these oddball size sockets too. That was a really oddball size. The bolt was not 7/8, but I don't have my 19 was too small, and my next step up was 23, and it was too big. So I ended up going to 7/8. So it didn't chew it, but it's not as pretty as it was. It didn't slip or nothing. The back are 15 to get this off. Now you got to get this off, and you have to beat that, because mine's 4-wheel drive. So because of being 4-wheel drive, the axle sticks through here. So all I've got a 1 7/16 socket, as close as I could possibly get with the stuff that I have without actually going and getting, buying one. And if I can get my foot out from the cord here. Well, I'm glad the compressor kicked back on. Now the reason I put that nut back on is now you have to push that out, or, kind of tap this out. It should just tap right out. I think that's pretty close. Turn this back the other way. Let's see what you're looking at now. Yeah, pretty close. To be honest with you, this is actually the first time I've ever done one of these. If you keep seeing water splashing out behind here, run down the frame, it's because the air conditioner. It is so humid here. It's miserable. Well, I might have to get an extension. Nope, that ain't gonna work. I knew it wouldn't. I don't even know why I tried. My steering arm, and actually I do have to take that loose, so that's what I ought to do, is just take this off, make it easier to get to this. Like I said, the outer tie rod's fine, the inner is bad, but I might as well just pull that. I have no idea what size that is. Well, it's not the size I have on me. Seven eighths. Let me go get a different hammer. There it went. Just need a bigger hammer. All right, no guarantees. That should be loose enough. There we go. One front wheel hub assembly. Don't forget to take that back off, because you got to put that back on there. So anyway, there is a seal in here. I'm not really sure if they need to be replaced or not. I imagine if it's really damaged. It goes around that hub though, and it goes in. And I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, and then I'm going to grease it before I put it back on. It doesn't look like it's damage that I can feel or see, but anyway, so that's your front hub assembly. Well, you didn't get to see all of it because the torch takes too long, and like I said, I had a fight with it, catching everything on fire, and I'm definitely I am not a mechanic, and I'm not certified and or an expert in any way, shape, or form. This is the first time I've actually done one of these. So if you do it my way, understand there's always a possibility and risk of damage and or worse. So if you do it the way I do it, you're doing it because well, you're doing it like I do it. You do it because you don't want to pay somebody. You know, I don't know what it costs to have one of these put on, but I know what just the parts cost, and I got price matched on most of it. To get front brake pads, inner and outer tie rod, the idler, this wheel bearing, and I bought 2 cans of small Freon at like $8 a can, of course. And I bought a little set. It was like, I don't remember now, 12, 14 bucks for, it had 5-point stuff in it. It was for another project, but it doesn't make any difference. Just buying those things, and that was really, I think, all I bought. As like I said, I already had the back brakes. That was even price match was $385. So even doing it my way, you know, and I still gotta have this thing aligned, and you know, it's not necessarily downtime for me because I have other vehicles to drive. But this was my only mode of transportation. Though you have to do this stuff yourself in a lot of cases. You can't send this to a shop and have it sit there for a week, maybe 2, while they mess around there and then charge you $1,000, you know, to do this. And you saw, I mean, besides the torch thing, and you could have done it without it if you had a good breakover bar or maybe a better impact than what I have. That would probably be the start, is to get something better than the Chicago pneumatic I have. I guarantee this thing is 20 years old, and I bet I haven't oiled it 6 times. I mean, it has been a remarkable piece of equipment for what I do. But it's not ideal for bigger, heavier stuff like this. So, you know, I usually don't do a whole lot with this thing. And you've seen the stuff I do. It's kind of small, and you know, I usually only use it for disassembly. But I use it a lot. Man, this thing has been around the block, but it is definitely not the best tool for the job anymore. It is getting wore out, and you know, needs some work. But anyway, guys, I'm not going to bore you anymore with that. Putting it back together is the exact opposite. Put your wheel, and you didn't have to take this off. I could have used the breakover bar to get it. The reason I did is because I have to take it apart anyway. So that's what I'm going to do next. Is I'm going to start pulling the front suspension apart. Just, excuse me, steering. The suspension's fine. It's the steering that's bad. And the idler has actually been bad since I bought the truck. I have just let it go, and because I was looking at it like, if there's just one thing wrong, why get into the whole thing and have to tear it apart? Because loosening and tearing all this stuff loose is just asking for problems later on. So I was going to wait for another thing to go bad or 2 before I actually, now I wasn't going to drive it. It wasn't unsafe to drive. It was just, I knew it had a little slop in it. I did not know that this wheel bearing had slop in it until what there is, actually how I noticed it was I was jacking it up to rotate the tire. And I noticed when I went up, it sunk in quite a bit more at the bottom, you know, and so I grabbed a hold of it like you've seen there. Now, not only are these notorious for doing this, understand that this was a truck that originally had 245 75/16 tires on it, and it has 285 75/16. So you're dealing with about a 32-inch tall tire, which is a lot taller than what they were. They're a little bit wider, and that puts excess stress. It's also heavier. It's rotating mass. There's a lot of things to do. It's harder on braking. It's sometimes better on fuel mileage because you've actually geared it a little higher, plus again more rotating mass, but just around town it doesn't do you any good. I mean, it's really cool to have big tires and stuff. These were actually on the truck when I bought it. They were brand new still. I mean, they just put them on when I bought the truck. So anyway, I'm going to get off here. I'm going to go ahead and like I said, clean this out. I could probably put the wheel bearing on, but I'm probably going to go ahead and see what it's going to take. Since this stuff's kind of out of the way, I can get underneath there and see what it's going to take to get this out. But anyway, just put it back together the opposite way. There's lots of videos out there of people doing this. Most of it's kind of self-explanatory. Make sure that your, I don't know if you noticed that when it come off, make sure your your sensor is orientated the way it came off, which if I'm not mistaken, I did not look. I'm glad it's got it on video. It either was on top or it was facing forward. And it may only go on one way. You know, I'm looking at these holes. These things seem to be set further in than here, but it could be an optical delusion. But anyway, just make sure that you rotate everything the way it's supposed to be, and then put that cable back in where it belongs. I actually got it hot getting it loose. I didn't notice that, but I did get it torched a little bit, so it must have been facing up then, because I heated this part up here. You know, actually it was the bracket because it was on this side of it. Anyway, reorientate and put the wire, and put it back in its holders, and make sure that it does not get hung in something, because the last thing you need is have that thing get hung, tear something up. you start getting lights on, and maybe your anti-lock brakes don't work, and there's a lot of things that could happen. So, all right, guys, I'm going to get out of here for now, and I'll turn you back on when I'm doing something else.